Behind the scale is technology with GenAI and data playing a growing role in how people discover, compare, and understand insurance today. Insurance is something most people avoid thinking about until they really need it. Policybazaar changed that relationship for millions of Indians by turning confusion into clarity and fear into informed choice. On today's episode of Beyond the Boardroom, powered by Amazon Web Services, we sit down with Sarbvir Singh, Joint Group CEO, PB Fintech, to talk about leadership, technology, GenAI, and how one platform reshaped how India thinks about insurance. Thank you so much for doing this with us, Sarbvir, and I'm very excited to be at Policybazaar.
No, it's my pleasure, Karishma. Welcome to Policybazaar.
You know, we've done so much research on you, and of course, we have to start with your army background.
Yes.
It must have been an experience in itself. So, walk me through a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think, Karishma, in hindsight, it's quite an experience because, now it's not normal to move around so much.
Yeah.
But, we moved every few years.
So, you went from IIT Delhi to then IIM in Ahmedabad. A lot of academia, right? But what is something outside of academia that kind of led you to understand what your strengths are?
I would say that, and this is kind of a theme which is repeated in my life, that I would say I'm a reluctant leader. Okay. See, there are some people who are kind of born leaders and all that kind of stuff, but I would say that I'm a reluctant leader. So I was elected in IIT because my juniors wanted me to stand for election. I didn't actually want to stand for election, and I'm a bit not as I would say outgoing as some others. So, but that has kind of been a theme throughout my life, that largely things have happened and they've happened because I think the goodwill of people around me, and that was true in IIM Ahmedabad also. It was not as, IIM Ahmedabad, the experience is very different from IIT. People are already a lot more I would say worldly wise. It's very bit more.
You've got your reality check.
You've got your reality check, and people are doing things for a purpose. See, even if somebody wants to make friends with you, they're doing it for some reason. It's not just ki chalo theek hai, kya farak padta hai. So I think Ahmedabad was different, but largely in my life, a motive that has recurred is that, and God has been kind, that I've got these opportunities and I've been able to do well.
So this is where you sit predominantly. Okay.
Yes.
And you're also a voracious reader. And I see a bookshelf. I'm sure it's not the entire thing by far, but any favorites for our audience that you would recommend?
A book that I would always recommend is called The Power of Habit. Maybe I'll just pull it out for you.
Yeah.
It's the reason I really like this book, and it's something that I truly believe in, is that I feel that instead of setting goals, we should focus on habits. And I think this has been said by different people in different ways, but it's really true, because if you say that I want to, let's say, get fitter, right? That is a sort of a difficult thing to measure. Whereas if you say that I will exercise every day for 30 minutes or 5 times a week, then, things change. So I have found this to be like, this was a moment in my life when I switched to this philosophy, when I realized that this is the right way to do it. And I recommend this to everybody, that don't, try to set goals, but change what you're doing. And it's just incredibly powerful once you kind of get used to it.
Yeah, Atomic Habits.
Yeah, Atomic Habits is the more famous, I would say the most famous book in this area. But similar, this book also talks about the same concept.
Amazing. So while we're here, and because this is the cabin of the leader, one leadership tip or one leadership realization that you've had in your time at Policybazaar that you'd like to share with our viewers?
The only one thing that I believe, and I think in leadership is very important, is to be authentic. I think many times we tend to try to do things because we have seen, Elon Musk do something, or Steve Jobs, or whoever, right, you want to follow. Of course, these are great examples. These people are there for a reason. But in the end, you have to be yourself. And I think when you try to be something that you're not, you feel a bit kind of insecure or the imposter yourself, and it translates into the team as well. So I feel that when you can be authentic and you bring your real side to work. So I don't try to hide, things from my team or from my colleagues, I would say. whatever I am, like I can't dance to save my life, but it's everybody knows that. It's not like
you shouldn't have said that. We may just be like, let's see.
Yeah, so I'm not, so I don't pretend that it's something. So that way I feel that when you are yourself, you don't have to pretend, you can be, and everyone is more comfortable around you. And we spend so much time in office with each other. In fact, much more time than we spend with our families.
That's
so
true.
it's really, I think it's important that the quality of interaction be very high and people should want to work with each other. So I think being authentic is the only thing I would say. I mean, as you know, there's a lot of material on what leaders should do and all that kind of stuff. But this is one thing that I sincerely believe. This is our floor where our management team sits.
Okay.
All our business people largely sit here.
How many hours a day do you spend here?
When I'm in town, I spend quite a few. I come in around 9:30, 10 in the morning and leave later in the evening because it takes me a long time to reach home. So it actually works better works better to stay here rather than be in traffic.
Okay. Yeah. So it's an open floor, I assume.
Yeah, it's a totally open floor. Actually, this is still a much better version of what we used to be. Earlier, we didn't have cabins also. We were largely open, but as people have grown senior, I think some people need to have little more privacy.
Yeah.
But as you'll see, even in a cabin, there'll be 2-3 people sitting at any moment in time. And so it's a fairly open structure. If I'm not in my office, typically somebody will be using it.
Yeah, okay.
Right now, I think because of you, they've kind of
because
left
of me,
it open. Yeah.
I'm to blame. Okay. So what's the culture like? What are some of the things that you look when you're hiring for these positions?
So we are a very non-hierarchical type of culture. We try to, everybody is very accessible. Largely we hire from outside insurance. In fact, very few people in Policybazaar have worked in insurance before they joined Policybazaar. And we would like to hire people, who have positive attitude, who are willing to work hard. So one thing is very clear in Policybazaar, you have to work hard. We don't have any magic, beans. Intellect beyond a point doesn't get you anywhere. So we need people who are positive, who want to work hard and who are optimistic. I think if you have these three things, everything works out in the end.
Yeah. When you speak about like working hard, etc., how do you kind of measure what that is, right? Like, is it something in terms of hours or is it just something in terms of just deliver?
I think we are very much about outcomes. See, we are not sitting here and counting how many hours you come, what do you do, and largely I would say that most people are free to do what they should be doing. So if they want to travel, it's up to them. They don't have to ask, like I don't approve anybody's travel or expense report or anything like that. So it's up to them. They can, we count on their judgment.
Yeah.
That's why they're here. And they're free to do what they feel like. Of course, we judge them by the results. What is the outcome? Are they able to deliver? But one thing I will tell you is that nobody in Policybazaar has ever got fired for failing, right? We understand that you do things, some of them work out, some of them don't work out. So failure is not the issue, sincerity is the issue.
So let's talk about the time when you came into Policybazaar. It was an interesting time, and then there was obviously a very big spike when you kind of went public. So how was that journey, seeing it in the absolute front row and witnessing it firsthand?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of obviously discussion around the listing. But if you ask me honestly, what happened was that when I joined in end of 2019, first, it was more about understanding the business and the people and everything. Turned into kind of almost like a crisis or a new thing, right? We had to cope with a new thing. The listing is in a way is an event, right? In a way, it's actually another start for the company, not really an end, right? Because now you owe it to a new set of shareholders and a lot more people are watching, etc. So more than the listing, I think it was very important for Policybazaar to have a new growth mindset again. Of feeling that we have kind of achieved a lot and we are we are there kind of thing, and it was important to break that feeling because I felt that we were just getting started. I mean, just to give you a sense, we are probably 8-9 times larger than what we were in 2020. If you look at March 20 numbers and you look at where we landed in March 26, we are probably 8-9 times the distance. Now, of course, some of it is just maths because what happens is that compounding of larger numbers moves faster. But the other thing was that we had to figure out new ways of doing things. Like for instance, at that time, we did not have a feet on street business, right? We believed that everything had to be closed online and that was, we were an online platform. But now, of course, everyone understands that digital doesn't mean online. It means that you could have now, phygital, or you should have closure in different ways. So I think that decision, and it was not necessarily like a decision made by one person. It was more there was a feeling around it, but we were not doing it. And I think we did it. Thirdly, I feel that we were just reaching a point where customer service was a big challenge for us, because we had now started selling enough that we had a lot of customers, and those customers believed that Policybazaar is the platform that they bought from. So it was Policybazaar first and then the product second. A new layer of people have come. So we have a lot of new people. So if you see, very kind of in a slow but steady way, the people who are running the business today are very different from the people who were running the business at that time. Several of them are the same. They may have moved up in terms of positions, etc. But several are not. So it's a mix of old and new. And I think I would say that it is satisfying to see that. I think there is a new, clearly optimism, and even today we believe that the best is ahead of us, not behind us. So I think that's the most important thing, I feel.
And it's an interesting time to have this conversation, because there are so many companies that are going public in India especially, right? And there's a lot of chatter and conversation around like what is the final outcome of that, because there's, like you said, there are so many more stakeholders involved, and you're responsible and accountable to them. Seeing this high and low, what did it teach you, about, I don't know, running a company, or about scale, or even about just, like you said, that, okay, it's at a low, but you're not just going to give up. You have to get it back up.
See, we were very clear that, first of all, I think one thing that we did well in hindsight was that we divorced the public market dealing, the investor dealing with investors, from running the business. So I would say me and beyond, everyone, all of us were only focused on running the business. Yashish and Alok were focused on meeting investors and all that kind of stuff. We never really tried to mix the two worlds, right? So that was one, I think, good thing. Second thing was that I think we tried to always say the same thing, that the stock price is not a reflection of your personality or of your capability. It is what it is. You have to only focus on the number. Are you doing more revenue, more profit, more contribution than last year? And I think that because we did what we said we would, I think that also brought confidence to the table. I think as a team, it was very good for us, because we realized that we have to focus on delivering profits. That's what the whole story is. And there's no point in sort of feeling sorry for yourself. Kaisa ho gaya, vaisa ho gaya. This is it. And if you see, we buckled down to it, and we said that let's focus. And I think in a way, it's part of the maturing of our company. And I think the people who are going public now, they will also go through the similar-ish experience. But hopefully they will all learn that, you have to focus on what matters. And again, very interesting and new things also come out of it, right? Several people in our company turned out to be much bigger stars than we thought they were, because they stepped up. So some part of, I think, the process of change is also very good. Because till a person is given a chance, you don't know how good they are. And the person who's sitting in the chair always looks better than the person who's not sitting in the chair.
100%.
Right? So I think that is also a very big thing. And
let's talk a little bit about numbers. Of course, profitability has been up. Congratulations. But what is your team size? Like, what is the team strength of Policybazaar right now?
So if you look at our entire group, of which Policybazaar is about 90%, I would say we have about 25,000 people now, spread all over the country. About little more than half are still in Gurgaon. But our fastest growing areas are the south. We've opened office in Hyderabad, Bangalore, Chennai, Kochi. We actually now have Policybazaar has a presence in almost over 200 cities, where our own people, and see, all of these people work for Policybazaar on our roles. There is no outsourcing, etc. And I think we just have a different level of capability. So today, if you tell any of us that we need to open an office in a particular city or a location, I think the confidence that we will be able to do it, we'll be able to manage it, is extremely high. And that is, again, I feel like that growth has built a new set of people in the company.
Let's talk a little bit about the subjective nuances, right? Insurance and topics around this are very sensitive, obviously. You also love speaking to customers, and the right thing to do, right? You go straight to the source and speak to them about how the experience is. Any experiences that come to mind where you've spoken to customers and been humbled by what you've heard?
So, I would say two things. See, one is just on the subject of insurance. The biggest challenge of insurance is that it is not top of mind for anybody.
Yeah.
Largely, it is something that we only remember when things have already gone wrong, right? And the second thing is that there is a huge degree of skepticism about it. Because it's not there's nothing to touch and feel, right? Even if you buy an insurance policy, there's no joy.
Yeah.
Like typically when we buy something, there is some joy, right? You buy a phone, you open it, you set it up, it's a physical
It's not even just
pleasure.
that. Like if you order something on Swiggy, it's instant gratification.
Yeah,
that green tick
exactly.
comes and you're like,
yeah. You get chole bhature and you can eat them, right? So the point is that इसमें कुछ नहीं होता.
Yeah.
And there is this skepticism, आप पैसे waste कर रहे हो, because imagine in India you're selling a service which you have to pay first and maybe use later. And even that use is not a positive use, right? Nobody wants to imagine themselves in an accident or in hospital or whatever.
You're thinking about a negative time.
Negative thing. So it's a very hard product to sell. It's one of the hardest products in the world actually to sell. So I think that is one of the biggest challenges of insurance. Now the flip side is that there is nothing more useful than insurance, right? Yeah. When something happens to you, and I remember, and what really surprises you about customers is that there are many customers, I would say, who are extremely aware of insurance. So, there is this general discourse that customers don't understand, but actually that's not true. There are many customers who are extremely aware of what they are doing.
Yeah.
And they are very clear about why they are buying it and what's going to happen. And then there is a set of people who just, maybe they bought it for some reason. So I give an example. In COVID, there was a person who was running a lab near Hisar. And he used to live in Hisar or something, and I think his family used to live in a village somewhere away. And unfortunately, this person passed away. And his kid saw a message from Policybazaar saying that your premium is due and you haven't paid it. So that's when they realized that they actually have a term insurance policy. And I forget, it was either for 50 lakhs or 1 crore. And then they approached Policybazaar and said, look, this has happened. And we, obviously then got the claim and they got 50 lakhs or 1 crore. And they could not believe it. That something in this world happened where their person who had passed away, their dad, had bought a policy and it actually paid them 50 lakhs or 1 crore.
So deeply emotional and meaningful, especially because it's that kind of a time in people's lives, right? Any idea on the number of claims that have been served from Policybazaar?
Yeah, so, we have helped facilitate almost over 1,000 crore rupees of claims. Wow. And every year, actually, this number grows very fast because we are helping in more claims and obviously our business is also growing very fast. I think the main thing that we do is actually, there are two different ways in which we help, right? One is, of course, if a claim comes to us and we help in getting it closed. But more than that is the fact that when you buy a policy from us, we ensure that your disclosure and everything is correctly recorded. So when you speak to us, we record the conversation, it's stored for 8 years, so it's there, right? Yeah. So our team also knows that you have to be absolutely precise. Now, when you do that, so when you go to a hospital or something, or even if it's like a car or whatever, because everything has been correctly recorded, when you go there will be no surprises. They will not say, oh, you didn't tell us that you had diabetes, so we're not going to approve your claim, or you had surgery, or etc. etc. So if you ask me, yes, there is a certain set of claims that go through Policybazaar. We have like 2,000 people working on that. But more than that is the fact that when you buy from us, you get a peace of mind and you have to answer a lot more questions. So the experience upfront may be a little bit more friction-full, but it is in your interest, especially in term insurance, where when you buy the policy and when you use the policy, it may be 10, 15, 20, 30 years from now. Yeah. So I think recording that thing. So I always explain to people that one of the reasons you should buy from us, one is, of course, you can compare, etc., etc. But the most important thing is that you will get peace of mind because we will make sure that everything is covered. Yeah. And you have properly, disclosed everything. So I think that's a big thing.
And that's so important also.
Yes.
How is GenAI playing a role in all of this? Obviously, the world has changed.
So I think we started working on GenAI about, I would say, 3 years ago. We have been very clear that what is our purpose? Our purpose is to make sure more and more people are protected. Yeah. So we are using GenAI for that purpose itself. So things like when you talked to us earlier, we had a call recording. We had some summarization capability, but we were not very accurate. Now we are able to summarize calls very well. We can summarize in 12 different languages. We can then tell our advisors, look, what was discussed? What's the next action? If you asked a question, we can make sure that you get an answer to that question, even after the call. Whether it's any kind of service issue, you can then talk to us, chat with us, whatever. The second level that where we are using GenAI, which is, as I mentioned to you, is to make sure that when you buy a policy from us, everything is covered. So for instance, if you speak about diabetes on a call with us and it is not mentioned in your policy, we will actually ask you, because now we can see from the call that yes, you spoke about diabetes. We can check that it's not mentioned in your proposal form. We will actually check with you and say, are you sure that you don't want to disclose this, or are you, was it just a normal conversation? That helping them buy better, making sure that our advisors are more informed, they're giving right answers. See, because short point, we are trying to use GenAI, but in a manner that the customer benefits from it or our advisors benefit. See, we have two constituencies, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Customer, advisor, and then the insurance company. These three constituencies, we keep trying to keep a sharp eye on that.
What about internally, right? There are some industries where GenAI has obviously changed how a company even functions. For example, for us, like we do a lot of writing, but a lot of it now happens parallelly, with human intervention, but a lot of it is happening on AI. Internally, has it boosted efficiency? How has that worked?
See, so I'll tell you, first I'll answer the question directly, that a lot of people are using GenAI. See, if you see our tech team, I would guess that 100% of them, whether officially or unofficially, are using GenAI for writing code and testing code, etc., etc. Yeah. So I think there is a huge element of productivity in that. Yeah. Our marketing teams are using GenAI, like you said, for content, also for translation. So today, you can make videos where you can explain a concept in 12 languages, 15 languages, any number of languages as you feel like. Yeah. So there's the cost involved in creating those videos is very low, right? So I think we're using it in marketing. We are using, a lot of our colleagues are using it for their daily life, right? I mean, today, if I have to check something or if I'm trying to research something, I can also just quickly, check and get a lot of answers, and I can get enough information to be dangerous in about 15-20 minutes, right? But the interesting thing I'll tell you is that so far, at least, the number of people that we have has only gone up. So whether it is in our tech team or it is in product or in our sales or service teams, we have not yet been able to, frankly, get rid of a single person. Yeah. Now, it's quite likely that it's because we are growing and, they are getting absorbed and, the whole thing. So, but I also believe that, technologies like this create their own sort of demand also. And they make you more efficient. You can do more things. But just like, today, theoretically, we should be working less and, sitting at home and, computers should be doing our job. But if you see, we are actually working more than we were working, or at least my parents were working. So I think it's kind of technologies bring their own, they fill up the time also. But again, we are always watchful. We would, if we see opportunities to be more efficient, we keep looking at it. But like I said, upfront, growth is the key thing. Once you have growth, then all these problems are easier to manage.
Okay, so I'll ask you an interesting question. While you're building this operation, obviously at such a large scale, you need partners, and a partner is like AWS, and it's incredible to see the scale that you're talking about. But during scale, which is there are launches or there are spikes or there's certain traffic that increases the volume, right? How has AWS kind of supported your expansion into scale?
No, you're absolutely right. We need the support and goodwill of our partners, whether it's insurance companies, whether it's AWS. And I think the decision to switch to AWS from our own hosting was done before me, but I think it was absolutely incredibly correct decision, because I don't think Policybazaar could have reached this point without having this infrastructure layer that we have through AWS. So one is, as you said, scaling up, we are able to, scale up, scale down, depending on the traffic, depending on the seasonality. Security is a very big concern, which obviously having a platform like AWS helps. And I think the support, I mean, I would say that, the people, whether it's Bhupendra, Shantanu, everyone, who work with us, right? They have, and their teams have really made a difference to Policybazaar. I would say they are as much part of our company as they are part of AWS. And they've helped us with ideas, with, suggestions, everything. And that has, contributed very, very deeply. And I think we have an awesome relationship with AWS.
But, even when you're building for scale, fluidity is super important, right? To experiment, to try new things. How does AWS kind of assist with that? Like when it's going from idea to execution, especially from the security and compliance perspective, that you can do it fast, but you're secure and you're compliant.
Well, I think, the one thing that you can always count on is that they have thought through these issues, right? Because they have to do it for a large number of clients and we are just one of those clients, right?
Yeah.
So I think that their worldview is much broader than ours. And I think that we lean on that for their support on that. And the second thing is, as you said, see, even if it's a small thing that we are doing, we can start small. It's a variable cost model in that sense. So you can start small and it can, as it grows, you don't have to worry that how will you manage if it scales very fast or something like that. So I think in that sense, it's a very elegant solution, obviously, to a problem. And for us, I think the partnership has reached a point where I think we are able to share with each other what our concerns are, what are we doing next, how can we plan for that. And I think, like I said, so far it's worked really well.
Yeah. So when you're partners, it's also a two-way relationship, right? Yeah. So how have they been able to actually analyze, say, customer behavior and make better recommendations using data and machine learning, which kind of helps you in making the next decision?
So I think one of the things that we discussed with them, I remember 3, 4, 5 years back, was to say that, let's expand our relationship beyond just sort of infrastructure.
Yeah.
Because obviously Amazon AWS has a lot of technology which they are bringing to bear on their business and they can share with us also. So I'm really happy to say that over the last 3, 4 years, we have expanded beyond infrastructure. Our entire data lake is hosted on AWS. We have kind of worked together to make that happen. A lot of services, a lot of our dashboards, etc., are on QuickSight, which at that time was quite new, but I think now is very well developed. So I think the teams have worked together. They've helped us on the AI and machine learning front as well. We've spoken to their experts, in different parts of the world. They've guided us, guided our teams. So I would say that the relationship has matured beyond just infrastructure.
Yeah.
And, I feel very positive that it will continue to go in that direction. Because see, beyond a point for Policybazaar, infrastructure is now a commodity, right? Yeah. It is there. Yes, we are very happy to be on AWS. But the real success will come from going beyond that and new services, new areas that, And I think that is a very uniquely Amazon and AWS trait, that they are focused on the consumer also.
Yeah.
Right. So they're starting from the customer. They are looking at how they can make the life of the customer better. See, because none of us are in it for the heck of it.
Yeah,
right?
or a short term. It's a very long term.
It's a long term business, and to that extent, we count on that.
Yeah. Okay, so having said all of these things, the last question for you is, how has your relationship with AWS become more of a strategic relationship, right? And how will it evolve as you continue to grow and expand?
That's what I was trying to reference, that I think we are definitely beyond, just the first layer. I think we are working together on many of the AI initiatives. I think we are using their Bedrock services. We are using GPUs on the cloud, etc. from them. So I think there are a lot of things that are happening. Of course, my wish is always that we do more. And as I always say, look, we are still a very small part of AWS, etc. But I would like to believe that we should be considered a kind of a critical client who can, offer. I think our teams also offer an advanced level of capability. They are working on cutting edge stuff. And I would always wish that AWS does all their pilots with us and they give us the first, look into everything new, because I think that's what we really would like.
What is 5 years hence looking like for Policybazaar?
See, we look at every day, every week, every month at a time. So our goal from 5 years is the same as it was 10 years ago or 15 years ago. See, we have set ourselves a task that her family hogi insured. That's our tagline. We sincerely believe in it. And there's a reason. See, the reason is that in India, the middle class doesn't have social security. At the end of the day, the government has to take care of the bottom of the pyramid first. Yeah. There isn't enough money as yet to take care of the middle class. So we believe that having protection against death, disease and disability is very, very critical. And every year we measure ourselves by saying how many more people have we got covered and how many more people to go. So if you ask me, our vision is very clear that we don't want to rest till we get to everyone. Of course, it's a grand vision, it's a grand idea. And we know that there are a lot of other people also who are working on the same problem. So I think we'll get it done eventually. But if you ask me, 5 years from now, we would like to be much larger, serve many more customers. and serve many more customer needs. See, as India grows, as the middle class grows, there will be many new things will come up.
Yeah.
Whether it's cyber insurance, whether pet insurance is starting to become a thing now. So it's new things will keep happening, and I think there'll be enough work for Policybazaar to do it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having us today, and you're truly doing so much work with impact and at scale. So congratulations, and thank you for having us.
No, thank you for coming.